Right back to you, Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars, Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech. Level, you've covered this conference for a long time. Texas and OU played a few years ago in the Big 12 championship game. You got Red River all over again, but it wasn't for a spot in the national championship like it is here. It wasn't a spot for the college football playoff like it is here. Both of these teams this time next week can understand they're playing for glory at the top of this sport. Is this the biggest championship game we've seen in the Big 12 in a long time?
Yeah, and it's kind of a perfect storm in some ways because this reminds me of the NFL version of what the NFL got with the Cowboys and the Chiefs on Thanksgiving Day, in that you have brands, you have interests, you have celebrity, you have good teams that are trying to fight in the playoffs in that instance. But in this case, there's going to be people that are tuning into this game nationally because they're rooting either for BYU or for Texas Tech for how it affects their team. So there's very much of a national relevant component here on who wins, by how much, all that kind of stuff. But there's just no way anybody can deny that these were the two best teams in the league. It's a combined, 22-2. And so, and we know BYU's a national brand. I think people have been following Texas Tech and kind of this ascent and are intrigued by how good this team could be. Texas Tech, this is shocking that I'm going to say this, but Texas Tech has a legit chance to compete for a national championship. I don't know if they're good enough to win it. I really don't. I don't know if they're good enough to win a game in the playoff. But if you look at what they've done and you look at what these other teams that are supposedly in the field, they belong in those conversations. And so I don't know where it goes from here, but I think it's and it's frustrating that BYU is not already in. That sickens me. It's not right. But this is apparently what the committee is saying.
Chris, there's obviously the sickos of college football out there. There's this parlay out there that say, so Duke's playing for an ACC title. They're 7-5, guys. If they win that game and win the ACC, they're likely not getting into the playoff.
James Madison
and Tulane or North Texas, whoever wins the American, you have two G5 or G6 teams getting into the playoff field. And if BYU wins, that would thereby put two Big 12 teams in. Drake, we're going to watch the SEC and the ACC melt down with the so-called lesser bands in the field if this goes down. There's a parlay out there of this that I'm sure you get pretty good odds on from our friends at FanDuel.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on that because you talk about the sickos behavior, that's what you're rooting for. And that's why some people maybe tune in to watch BYU play this game.
Yeah, I'm sure Kalshi has something on it. You know a thing or two about Kalshi over there.
Hey, I learned about Kalshi over the past weekend. I had no idea what it was. I learned very quickly what it's all about.
So that's where, I think, Level, as somebody myself who's covered the Big 12 for going on 8 years now, and that's not near as long as you have, but in those 8 years, you've seen the college football playoff develop into what it is, and the Big 12 conference try to compete for a national championship, and no one's won a game outside of TCU, which still feels kind of random. There's that one-off. The year prior, they were bad enough to fire the coach. The year after, they missed a bowl game. And so your one win in the playoff all time it feels like fluke's not the right word because they deserve to beat Michigan, but it's different. It wasn't OU. It wasn't a powerful Oklahoma State or a Kansas State that develops. But now for you, Hatch, we're talking about a year where you brought in a quarterback from Stanford who's a true freshman. Like McKay Hillstead's, you're going to be your starter because the other quarterback had premarital relations with a woman that turns out possibly consensual. You lose your senior quarterback. You go to the freshman who misses spring ball. It's going to be McKay Hillstead. It's not McKay Hillstead anymore. By the way, in the middle of all this, Rob Wright shows up, right? You're already going through controversies in basketball of now we're a basketball school. We're focusing on A.J. DeBonson and how that the 2025 for BYU, AD change, has been storyline after storyline. Then your head coach leaves in the middle of the week before the Big 12 title game and comes back to BYU. All of that, I think, culminates into what might be the biggest BYU singular sporting event in school history.
If it's probably the biggest game, at least since 1984 in a Holiday Bowl that ultimately clinched BYU their only national title in football. It is 41 years in the making here, and it's not lost on me, Drake, that this is a moment that BYU needs to seize if at all possible, because they have had aspirations quite literally decades since they hoisted that national championship in 1984 of being on this stage. That means having a legit possibility to play for a national title. I'm with Chris. If BYU does find a way to make it into the playoff field, I'm under no illusions that I would consider them to be maybe a national title contender. I'm not even sure they'll even get out of the first round, but they simply want to be able to knock on that door, kick it down, whatever term you want to use, and play for the darn thing. And that's what they're chasing right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is the biggest game for BYU, though, in a month, really.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
Because that was the first, was that not the first game against the top 10 team opponent ever?
It's top 10 versus top 10. So BYU.
Top 10 matchup. That's what I meant to say.
Exactly. They never played a top 10 versus top 10 matchup. That was history in Lubbock, obviously. And Chase Roberts said after the game, we're going to be back in this place again. And Chase spoke after the Kalani Sitake presser. And I asked him the question. I'm like, hey, some people thought you were maybe being a little over the top with saying that we're going to be back in this. And he's like, no, we manifested it. We knew we were going to be back in this game. And I think I respect him speaking out as vociferously as he did on that point, and he manifested it. They're here back on this stage, and they've got to do everything. I mean, everything within their power to win this game, because I'm with Chris. I don't get why the playoff committee hates BYU, because that's exactly what it appears it is, but they've got to knock down this door to get in the field.
Yeah, I think BYU has also proven if you want a brand, if the problem is viewership, if it is support, BYU has that. Like, I feel much more confident. Actually, it sounds super, super weird, but I have more confidence in BYU fans traveling to Phoenix than I do A&M fans. And A&M will travel. It's not me trying to dock A&M here, but I've seen what BYU fans can do. They just overthrew Penn State. Like, I wouldn't start doubting what you will get from an exposure standpoint by allowing BYU to be in this spot. You know what? I'll rephrase that, actually. I think A&M fans would show up. Alabama fans would not show up in Phoenix like BYU fans would. I've been to games in Tuscaloosa. They're not like that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this much, Drake. The valley down there in Arizona, there's a huge contingent of BYU fans, members of the Christ Latter-day Saints. They have certain restaurants that only exist in Utah. The only restaurant of those that exist outside of Utah happen to be in the valley down there in Arizona, like Mesa and that surrounding area. So they would have a huge influx.
And the same goes if you say, hey, BYU's playing in D.C. Like, well, we've got 40,000 alum in D.C. Yeah. You know, there's just something about it.
The entire East Coast wing of the Mormon Church will show up.
It's nuts to me. And Level, we'll end the show with you briefly here. Texas Tech loses. The Big 12 gets 2 in. Again, Brett Yormark has an obvious rooting interest here for the conference to get 2 teams in the playoff. It's going to be millions more dollars for the league. If Tech loses, does it dilute at all what the Red Raiders could do in the college football playoff? Because they will obviously be in despite a loss.
Yeah, I think they'll be in. I think they're so high now that they, depending on how they would lose, if that's what we're talking about, you still may be in a position to host.
I think so, yeah.
And it's a weird spot to be in. Like, when, and you could go back to AT&T on New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's almost like a perfect storm. I've talked to somebody at the Cotton Bowl offices, and I think that there's some regionality, and they want the CFP to be this, that they have definitely got their eyes on Texas Tech. But I don't know if it would do. I mean, you would have to go play an extra game. We were talking 2 or 3 weeks ago, like, hey man, do you want to host a playoff game, or do you want to buy? Like, what if you could pick it, and all that stuff. And so, I mean, I don't know. This is all so foreign. I mean, this is not like the fact that we're sitting here talking about, I mean, so you would have to host a playoff game. I mean, like, how would you feel about, I mean, like, are you kidding me? I mean, this is uncharted territory, man, for all the above, for BYU too. BYU's never been in a conference championship game, right?
No, they've played in 2.
Okay, 2. Okay.
1996 and 1998 when the old WAC was 16 teams.
See, okay, got it. Okay, so Power 4 league though. This is different. But yeah, been a minute. So this is a lot of fun, and I will say this too: the atmosphere in that stadium on Saturday morning will be big time. It will be big time.
That's and I saw this. The Baylor Oklahoma State was huge, and those are 2 fan bases that have been we have really gone through the murk the last few years. These are two fan bases that are as excited as ever because they have a shot at a college football playoff and national championship. I don't think anybody's rooting harder for BYU than the Texas Tech PA guy. I guess for one more game in Lubbock, baby. One more playoff game with the PA guy gets. I've been there.
You know who the PA guy is, right?
No, who's the PA guy?
Casey Cowan, my co-host.
No kidding. That's who it is.
Not.
Yeah, I swear.
No way.
Yes.
My man.
Yeah, he is just finished his second season as the Texas Tech PA announcer. So yeah,
wow.
1,000% breaking news.
Oh my God!
And another Red Raider first down. That's my man. Cowan.
Well, on your behalf, Casey Cowan, I guess we'll all root for BYU, and that's what he wants. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chris Level at Chris Level on Twitter, and Jake Hatch at Jacob C. Hatch. They are locked on Cougars, locked on Texas Tech, locked on Big 12. Thank you for making our shows your first listen every single day. This has been, and always will be, a crossover locked on Texas Tech, Cougars, and Dose Grande.